Good evening, everybody. Sandra Sheffer, host of Racing Races. Yep, I'm back for a second week in a row. I am. Oh my God, look at the hair. The hair's kind of tripping today, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm here. It's a lot happened this week. There was some there's a lot happened this week. Particularly what's happening with TPS. So I know a lot of people are concerned. So I was like, well, let me just hop on. I'll talk about a few things and then I'm gonna go on because I have a lot of stuff to do. I'm trying to catch up. This is important. I started sending out emails to candidates to see if they want to come on the show and be interviewed and give you a preview or state their vision to what it is that they want to do for you and why it is they want to be your representative. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we will start doing interviews of candidates. Now, again, so what should we talk about? The TPS first, the Supreme Court first, the fact that they're creating a king in the country. Yeah, it's a lot. And also there was I want to talk a little bit too about the town hall. It was a town hall or candidate forum or something that happened in Miami-Dade at Florida Memorial College yesterday. I had the opportunity to be there to witness some of the candidates who are running for CD24. So I have some comments that I want to make about that. We'll talk about that. So first thing, we're going to remind everybody that the last day to register to vote, if you plan on voting in the primaries, is July the 20th. That's the last day that you're allowed to register to vote if you plan on voting in the primaries. Also remember that Florida is a closed primary state, meaning that you're only allowed to vote for the party in which you're registered for. So if you're a registered Democrat, you will vote for Democrats during the primaries. If you're a Republican, you will vote for Republicans during the primaries. If you're registered as a non-party affiliate, you will only be able to vote in nonpartisan races, which is usually judges, school board seats. Those are the ones that tend to be nonpartisan. Most of the other seats are partisan seats. So please register to vote before June the 20th if you want to vote in the primaries, which actually the last day to vote is August 18th. You keep hearing this August 18th day, but that's actually the last date to vote because in Florida, we have 2 weeks of early voting, and early voting will be from August the 3rd until August the 16th. So early voting starts August 3rd to August 16th, and it ends on August 16th. And August 18th, the day that you see that's advertised, is actually the last day you're allowed to vote during the primaries. And on that day, you actually have to vote at your voting location that's on your voter's registration. During the primaries, you can vote at any one of the early voting sites during the primaries from August 3rd to August the 16th. But if you wait until August 18th to vote, you have to vote at your voting location. The other thing I want to say, and I only have the schedules for Miami-Dade and Broward County. I will have the early voting schedule for Palm Beach. If somebody's listening and they're familiar with Palm Beach's early voting, go ahead, put it in the chat or let me know. In Miami-Dade, you need to get the early voting schedule because unlike Broward County, where early voting is from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., August 3rd to August 16th. Our time is straight, 7 a.m., 7 p.m., August 3rd to August 16th. The primary day of voting on August 18th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So there's no guessing with Broward because it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. However, Miami-Dade is on something else. So Miami-Dade on the early voting, for example, August 3rd to August 7th, which is Monday through Friday, early voting is from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. August 8th and 9th, which is Saturday and Sunday, is from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then the week of August 10th through August 14th, early voting is from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And August 15th and August 16th, early voting is 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So with all of those variations in voting times, you need to have the voting schedule if you're voting in Miami-Dade, because they don't have the straightforward 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. that Broward has. So on Monday through Friday, the first week of early voting from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., the weekends, both weekends of early voting will be 8 to 4. And August 10th through August the 14th, the early voting period is from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's Miami-Dade County. Broward County kept it simple. Thank you, Joe Scott, Supervisor of Election in Broward County. Early voting period is from August 3rd to August 16th, and you can vote from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and you have the ability to vote at every location. My understanding is that you have to request for your vote by mail ballot. Again, if you requested it already, good. If you haven't, good. If you're not sure, check and request it, because early voting of the ballots for people who want to vote by mail, I believe they're going to be sent out as soon as July the 9th. So they're actually going to go out before the period for which people have to register to vote is going to go out. So I believe the ballot starts going out July the 9th, which is next Friday or something like that. So request your vote by mail ballot anyway, because it will at least let you see who's on the ballot. Some people may not trust it. I don't blame you. It's all kind of shenanigans going on with the mail, and there's actually threats right now of I think there's this movement that's going out there, and I will provide that information too, that they want people to go ahead and text United States Postal Service, because apparently, and I hope I don't have this completely wrong, but apparently the president is threatening that if certain states don't provide some information to him, he's going to either not deliver the vote by mail ballot, slow it down, do something. Some shenanigans is going on. So pay attention to that. I will look for that information hopefully before this broadcast is over. But if not, I will definitely talk about it next week. But I really should talk about it now, since I believe today is the last day for people to give public comments. So let me see if I can find that information about where you're supposed to text if you want to make public comments about the decision that the president is trying to make about people voting early. I'm a part of so many different groups that I have messages coming from all over the place. So I can't figure out which one of the many chats that I belong to that was talking about this, but I know that they were sending out messages for people to text the Postal Service about this decision to try to impact the delivery of vote by mail ballots. So I am looking. It's not coming to me. Like I said, I'm part of a whole bunch of chats. But if I find it, I will repeat it. But if somebody knows, but you know whose page I saw it on, actually. So if any of y'all are friends with Brian Johnson, go on his page. He has it. It's on his page. So go and check that out. Now, the other big thing that that's going on is what's happening with a temporary protected status. People are like frantic right now because all of those the work authorization cards that those individuals have are set to expire on tomorrow, which is July the 2nd. And people are already starting to lose their jobs. And it's not only just the people who are losing their job. It's unfortunate because they're losing incomes. But business owners who have hired people who have TPS is now going to have to get rid of their staff. And in some instances, there are businesses that are getting rid of significant percentages of their staff, right? I received a phone call today where someone called me where this person has to lay off 25% of his staff because of the temporary protective status decision that came out of the Supreme Court last week. So that's unfortunate. So that's not only just hurting immigrant families, it's also hurting business owners that, you know, this administration claims to care about. So now they have to see if they can hire and train people within a short amount of time to not disrupt their ability to maintain and run their business. So that is something that's also concerning right now. Hold on one second. that is also something that's concerning, because business owners are also being impacted by this. Now, there's also there is some confusion about what exactly happened, because typically when the Supreme Court makes a decision, there's usually about 30 days or so before it goes into effect. And what really happens is that the matter goes back to the lower court, and then the lower court I'll continue the litigation, make whatever decision they're going to make, and whatever's going on is usually not fully in effect until it goes back to the lower court and some order comes out of the lower court. But what the court did is that they gave the president and the Department of Homeland Security to make decisions that are no longer reviewable by any court. So what does that mean? So if tomorrow, which based on the cruelty of what this administration has exhibited, they will make a decision that TPS is over and that's it, and no one can review it. As a matter of fact, the court rulings were about Haiti and Syria, but today they ended the TPS for people from the country of Burma. Their TPS ended today, which is July the 1st. So I mentioned this in another conversation that I had yesterday about how Haitians are the face of it, because it's easy to hate Haitians, it's easy to hate Black folks, and so Haiti, it was just a test case for what's going to happen to all other nationalities and all other countries that have temporary protective status. Like I said, I believe today they ended temporary protective status for nationals of Burma, and there's more of that to come. So, we really need to be more vigilant. I know that there's some elected officials that are trying to have town halls, trying to provide resources and information to folks. I'm glad they're doing that now. Some of whom I wish did it back in 2025, but we can't change the past. It's good to see that they're trying to do something moving forward. But a lot of the legislation that's being brought and talked about and that they're going to try to bring in front of the House this week in this upcoming session, I'm not going to say it's a little too late, but the court has set the stage where they're willing to let the president, Homeland Security do whatever. So if you have people who are currently elected that's not going to go against what it is that the president wants to do, the fact that you bring forth legislation right now doesn't mean anything. And that's why, we always talk about how elections have consequences, and they do. And this is an opportunity for people to really send fighters to DC, because you're going to need somebody that's not afraid to fight, to be in DC right now. You also need to send people that are not bought and paid for to DC right now, because part of why a lot of these things are happening is because you have people who have taken so much corporate money that even though they say, oh, yes, they donate to my campaign to help me win, they can't control me. That's what you think. And they do control them, because you know what happens when they get elected and they don't do what the people who heavily supported them told them to do? They're going to just send somebody, primary them, and they're going to lose their seats. And I'm just telling you, a lot of them folks, when they get to DC, they get real comfortable with the perks and they don't want to lose them. And sometimes they do what's against the interests of their constituents in order for them to maintain their status. I said that, I stand on that, and I've seen it happen time and time again. So I'm not going to pull back from my position that that's what happened to certain individuals who get to DC. They don't want to give up the perks that they're receiving, and they do that at the expense of their constituents. And that's an unfortunate scenario, yet it's a real one. Ayanna Pressley out of Boston has some really good legislation that's out there, wants to make TPS, I think, permanent for like 3 years. That's a good thing to do. I hope the people in the House supports that. I also hope a lot of these major corporations support that decision too, particularly since I know for a fact there are a whole bunch of people that got TPS that works for Jeff Bezos and Amazon. I know that there's a whole bunch of people that have TPS that works for Purdue Farms in the meat packing factories in Indiana. So yeah, they need to do something about that. And hopefully I ain't just put no target on them folks, but I say that to say this is that there are major corporations that are benefiting from the fact that they have this labor pool that's doing good work, that's making their companies successful. And then, here's what we're doing. The other major thing that's being discussed is the amount of people of Haitian nationals or just people from immigrant communities that are in the healthcare field. So people think that, oh, we're just going to lose the person that works in a hotel. You're just going to lose the farmer. No, you're about to lose your mom's nurse. You're about to lose your mom's healthcare provider. You're about to lose all of those folks. And imagine a hospital, a medical facility having to get rid of their staff in a matter of a day, and then to also hire and bring people in to fill in the gaps. These are things that are not thought about when folks are making very cruel decisions that are not thought through. And also when they have members of their administration that are just fans of theirs, as opposed to people who are competent and knowledgeable about the departments that they're representing, and they're supposed to provide guidance for, right? So we're seeing this. We're just seeing the incompetency of this entire administration play out with all the crazy that's going on, right? But in the court, it's just so stunning to me that these people went to some of the top law schools in this country, and that's the type of decision that they're making, and that they're compromising themselves in this sort of way. It's extremely unfortunate. And I know many of folks was very disappointed in Amy Coney Barrett, because this woman actually adopted 2 children from Haiti. So it comes up. People were talking about, how is she raising them if she knows why she adopted those kids from Haiti. She saw the conditions of which, a lot of Haitian national lives in, but then she's willing to agree on some legislation that would try to send back at least 350,000 Haitian nationals. That's not including people's spouses. That's not including their children that were born here, because we do have a lot of what they call mixed status families that's living in the United States. And it's going to be difficult to tell some mother or father to leave the United States and leave their children here, leave their spouse here, leave their parent, their elderly parent that they were probably taking care of here. So it just doesn't make any sense. And the other part of this too is that there's a level 5 travel advisory against traveling to Haiti, right? One of the things that should be considered when they're making decisions to take away TPS is whether or not the country is in a position to take back in their nationals. You can't say that if you got a level 5 travel advisory. You can't say that if you have forces outside of Port-au-Prince, just in case something pop off over there. But this is the cruelty of that administration. Now, last summer, me and 2 other individuals, Christine Saint-Onjul, who is running for Florida State Senate District 34, and Naomi Blamure, we did a whole series of town halls last year, preparing people exactly for this moment. So for those who had participated, those who were listening, those who had passed that information on, we think at least some folks are ready for this moment. Now, the other part that I wanted to say is, with TPS, not everybody that has TPS is going to get removed and deported from the United States. Some of them will, because some of those individuals actually have the ability to get green lawful status in the United States through another way. Either a child that's over the age of 21 that's a United States citizen, a spouse that's a United States citizen that petitioned for them, or they may have had an application that was previously filed for them either before April 30th of 2001, where they can that application is current right now, and they can adjudicate it that way with a penalty. So some people are going to be able to do those applications and remain in the United States. There are also some individuals that have asylum applications that were pending. Now they'll just put them back into court, give them an opportunity for them to have those applications heard. Now, that was a thing that used to be just a lot more secure before, but nowadays it's not, because this administration has also got into certain agreements with certain countries where they're doing something that's called third country removals. So, for example, even if a Haitian national is able to make the case that they will be persecuted if they were returned to their native country, this administration basically said that they could send them to a third country. So they could just send them somewhere else. They could send them to Eswatini, Uganda, somewhere, one of these other places that have Ecuador, one of these other places that have agreements that says, yes, send your nationals to us, right? Now, what we've seen is when they do send people to third countries, which they have, those third countries are basically sending them people back to their native country. But the United States can say our hands are clean. We're not the ones that sent them back there. But if you know that that's ultimately what's going to happen, how is it that you can send someone to a third country that's not really going to let them remain in that country? And some of them may not even be safe into those third countries that they're being sent to, right? So that was the asylum piece. And then there is a category of folks who are going to get deported. And the reality is that they've had orders of deportation for a very long time. Temporary protective status allowed them to remain in the United States. So it's really no surprise to them. I mean, it's not a surprise. They don't like it. Of course they don't like it, but it's really not a surprise to them that they're at the end of the road, right? Again, last summer, we spent a lot of time explaining that to so many folks. We were encouraging people then to make sure you consult with an attorney who knows what they're talking about so they can give you good advice. Some people needed to start making preparations that if they weren't going to go to Haiti, that there was some other country that they could have gone to or that could receive them. So, it's going to be varying outcomes for people who are losing their temporary protective status either tomorrow or the next 30 days. But hopefully there's some level of compassion, or maybe somebody else will give another $1 million donation and tell them, like, we need these workers, and he's just going to leave them folks alone and they'll be able to stay in the United States. So we'll see that. There's a town hall. There's something happening at New Mount Olive Baptist Church tonight. I'll go ahead and promote that event real quick. It was sent to me, but I don't believe I'm going to go because I have some other stuff to do, and I'm not in a position to be going outside like that right now. But New Mount Olive Baptist Church is having what they call We the People. It's actually a gospel concert and panel discussion. Norm Nixon, somebody named Tracy Jones, Roland Martin, and Dr. Rosalind Osgood is going to be there tonight. It's starting at 6:30 and it's going to go until 9:30. It's at New Mount Olive Baptist Church, 400 Northwest 9th Avenue in Fort Lauderdale. And it's going to be hosted by Kiera SHEARD Shared, right? So if you got time, if you're in the area, go ahead and check that out. They're going to have a panel discussion about a lot of what's going on. And I mentioned that, the Supreme Court is creating a king, and it appears that's exactly what it is that they are doing, right? The other thing, they decided not to get rid of birthright citizenship. And then, of course, the GOP is seeming to be outraged by that. That would have been them just basically saying the Constitution don't mean nothing, and they were going to just violate the whole United States Constitution. But then the other part of that too is, like, I posted something about, like, don't pay attention to, I almost said a bad word. I'm glad I didn't. Don't pay attention to this GOP outrage, because the reality is, like, those who have foreign-born wives and have children with foreign-born women, they would be impacted too. This is not something that only happens to Black people. That's just the outrageous part of this, right? They act like it's all just poor Black immigrants or poor Latin immigrants or poor Spanish immigrants that's in this country having children without them having any status. That is not true. That's not true. There's a whole bunch of people from European countries that don't got no status that are having kids in the United States. Those people from England that get to come here with no visas, a lot of them overstay their visas and they have children in this country too. France, all these places, those things happen too. So this is just not something that's happening with immigrants from the Caribbean, Latin America, and Africa. So they were not really trying to get rid of that because their kids would be no longer Americans if that decision was made also. And some of the more vocal people that were talking against it, their parents are immigrants, right? And probably they were born in the United States before their parents had status. So this is just so ridiculous, right? I mean, white folks just get to be white a lot quicker. They just, even if they're European people get to become white a lot faster, just, as soon as they have their kids that were born here, even though they're two are immigrants. They have, again, parents and grandparents from other countries. So that birthright citizenship, where most folks aren't surprised that didn't pass, because we just can't imagine how that was going to pass. Now that housing, that bipartisan housing bill that the president refused to sign last week, it's on his desk. Even if he doesn't veto it in 10 days or so, which I think is probably at least 5 days have passed already, then it will become law. Even if he does, it will go back to the Senate and they'll need like 2/3 of the vote to pass it. I believe they do have that. So he may just let the days run and go ahead and let it become law. So there'll probably be some relief for some people in housing. And I think, you know why that's happening? Because even the developers and the contractors and the people that own them buildings, they realize that, you know what, if something don't give, we just gonna have a whole bunch of empty buildings because nobody can afford to live in them anyway. So even though that may seem to be something that's benefiting people, it's benefiting corporations too. I'm gonna just say that. There's some comment about the property tax, the one in the state of Florida that's going to be on the ballot this November. I'm telling y'all, please just don't, like, I really don't support it because I don't see how that's going to benefit just regular folks. Yeah, you may at some moment get a little bit of money because you don't have no property taxes, but they're going to find another way to stick their hand in your pocket and take that money back. And when I say I really believe the insurance company will just use that as an excuse to increase insurance, and then so it's really going to be no savings, because oftentimes people are thinking like, oh my God, my property taxes is their problem. No, what we pay for insurance is our problem in the United States, because my insurance on my home is way more than what I pay in property taxes, right? My mother, the insurance that she pays on her home is more than her property taxes. And my mother is 83 years old, paying like tens of thousands of dollars for insurance on her home, right? That's been paid for however long, right? And you dare not have a house that's uninsured in Florida, and with all the hurricanes that happen. So they, give some relief, if not to, I mean, if you think, those of us that are young enough to keep working hard, that's one thing, but do something with this insurance for people that are 80 years old, that's on fixed incomes and that type of thing. That's the type of stuff that they, these elected officials need to go to Tallahassee and try to promote, instead of giving FP&L the ability to raise your rates every time they want to, insurance company to raise your rates, and as soon as a hurricane comes, they just dip out the state and you let them go, or give them some sort of tax credit or tax benefit, that type of thing. So we need people that's really going to go there and fight for folks. And hopefully, Christine Saint-Onge for State House District 34 is one of the people that you all decide to send there. She ain't asked me to say that, but I'm gonna say that, right? I think she's one of the candidates who really have a handle on the issues and what it is that everyday people are dealing with. There are some judicial candidates in Miami-Dade. Bonita Jones Peabody is running for judge in Miami-Dade. People should vote for her. Renee Gordon is running for a judge position in Miami-Dade. Support her candidate. Tamar Hamilton is running for judge in Broward County. Veronica Walker is running for judge in Broward County. Support these people. Again, they didn't ask me to do that, but these are people who I know that are doing good work. I've had conversations with them, and I think we need to support them in any way. The judges can't ask you to donate, but I'm going to tell you, if you can donate to their campaign, go ahead and support them as best that you can. Find out about them if you want to, but definitely go and support them. And yeah, that property tax, don't vote for that, because that impacts law enforcement services, fire, how it is that cities can even, take care of you. And they need that money in order for them to operate, right? So don't support that. Don't fall for the okie doke that's going to save you money. And one of the examples, one of the reasons why I would say don't do that, right, is someone posted something, and I hate when I have to make reference to things that are online, but someone was talking about how like they pay for a hotel room and then now they have to pay for parking at the hotel. They was like, what? That's crazy, right? That's just another way in which businesses found that they can take people money, is to force you to pay to park overnight at the hotel, even though you've already paid for a room. I'm telling you, if you vote for this property tax, you're not going to pay for them property tax no more, but they're going to find some sort of way to take that money out of your pocket. You're not going to be able to keep it. That's just, it's against capitalism to leave consumers with a surplus, right? That is just, anytime they find it, they take it. That's why we pay $11 for coffee. okay? Because the whole nature of business is to take away as much consumer surplus as you can. And if you can make somebody pay more for something than it's actually worth, then they pay. That's why they charge you for $10 for water at the game when you can buy a case of water with 40 bottles in it for $5 at Costco, okay? Now, the last thing I want to talk about is that that is CD24. That's the House race, the U.S. House race that's happening for Frederica's seat, because Frederica Wilson's seat that she decided to not run for again, right? So it was like seven candidates were there last night. Dr. Rudy Moise wasn't there, and I believe there's another Republican female that wasn't there, but Jean Monestein was there, Rod Vereen, Chevron Jones, Oliver Gilbert, Kendrick Meek Jr. There was a lady named Tay something, I don't remember her middle name, Brown, that was there. And there was another Mr. I know his last name is Davis, don't remember his first name. I want to say it was Jefferson Davis, but I could be talking crazy when I say that. But I believe his last name was Davis. So all 7 of them were there. They were answering questions. But in that format with so many people, they don't truly have an opportunity to fully develop what their platforms are. But they did say yes or no about how they felt about, getting rid of student loans, giving money, supporting AIPAC, taking corporate dollars and all that type of stuff, right? Whether or not there should be some federal standard on education, if they support that. So they did ask them questions, and they answered them yes or no, and some of them gave some feedback. But one of the things I noticed, a couple of things. One of the main things that I noticed was that they were really preaching to the choir, right? So the people who were in that room are not necessarily the people that needed to hear what it is that they had to say. There were a lot of supporters of both Oliver Gilbert and Chevron Jones there. I don't know if them people was paid staff or not, but I think at the very least they were volunteers. I think so. They may or may not have been, but they seem to at least have been volunteers. Some of them may have been paid staff. They had their signs up every time something came up, like, I'm with Chev, Oliver, they was going back and forth. And you could tell that they already got a whole bunch of campaign money, because it was signs everywhere. Let me tell you, from the time you pulled in the Flomo up until you got to the door to when you got inside, there were signs everywhere, right? So they definitely got the budget to pay for signs. So if you want a yard sign, they got a whole bunch of them. You go get it, okay? And there were, there was a sprinkle of Jean Monestein sign. I think there was a sprinkle of the Davis person sign. I didn't see, Meek had some signs out there too, right? But Meek is actually doing something that's real interesting. He's getting a lot of unearned media, and what that is that he gets on the news and he ain't had to pay for no ads, so he knows somebody, right? So I did see some of his signs there. And the one female, that Tay Brown person, she's actually a Republican candidate. She's actually MAGA. She's a MAGA Republican candidate. I truly want to talk to her and figure out how it is that she ended up in that place, because one of the things that she did say was that she used to be a Democrat and she ain't no more. I really want to understand that journey. So if y'all see her on the show and you see me talking to her, that was some curiosity, and I hope the curiosity don't kill the cat, because I really want to talk to that woman. But yeah, so in terms of that, when I say that they were preaching to the choir, the people who need to really hear what they're talking about wasn't in that room. They really wasn't in that room. So it was like either the paid staff, the volunteers, and those of us who are like political junkies, and we show up to all the kind of stuff, and we hear what they want to say. And I take interest in those races because my mother lives in Miami-Dade and she votes in Miami-Dade. So I also need to know what's going on in Miami-Dade too, as well as what happens in Broward County. So that's why. So it's not, I had my reasons to be there. And basically, my mother just listened to what I tell her. Okay. When it comes to that, her and some other people too, but she just listened to what I tell her. So I was there. Now, this going to sound real cool. So this part of it right here, I know it's no bueno, but I'm going to say it anyway, right? So as part of that conversation, they were talking about the high cost of living, how you're going to cut prices, what you're going to do for the people, right? And I ain't gonna call the candidate's name out, but the candidate know who they are, and all the people in the room know who the candidate was, right? So there were 2 candidates there that had on red bottoms, all right? So there were 6 men there, 1 woman. The female candidate had on red bottoms. I understand, hey, lady, there you go. But the guy had on some red bottoms, right? And I'm just like, are you serious? You got on shoes that's the price of people like rent, mortgage, whatever in this thing, and you out here trying to advocate, talking about you finna go there and work for the people. And listen, you know, that's to me in that moment, man, just put on your regular shoes. And if you ain't got on no regular shoes, then that might be something else that people need to consider, right? Particularly when there was an accusation made against that particular individual that he took money from the people who built Alligator Alcatraz. That is some listen. I'm a practitioner of immigration law. Ain't nothing cool about what that whole thing was. And if you're taking developer money that was involved in that project, people gotta, that just raise up some red flags. That makes people question, what it is that you're gonna do. And I do understand that elections are expensive. You need the money to put all them 10,000 signs outside that I saw all over the place already. I understand that. But if you're talking about doing stuff for the people are looking at where your money comes from. And even if folks are always gonna be like, I'm not bought, I'm not, they can't buy me, whatever. Like I said, either if they giving out a certain amount of money, they definitely have some expectations. And if you don't meet those expectations, you may be gone during the next cycle. And oftentimes people get to DC and they don't want to be gone, right? So I'm just saying it just makes people think twice about what you're doing when you take certain money. And then to show up at that town hall with some red bottoms on, man, bruh, that to me, that was not a good look. That was not a good look. It just wasn't, because even people who ain't got no money, and that's not no hateration or nothing like that. It just was like, that's just, you ain't need to do that. That's just a little extra. That was a little too much. What for? Right? Like, what for? Why are you doing that? Come on, man. Don't do that. Wear some regular shoes the next time. Please go buy some floor shines or whatever it is. I don't even know if they still sell those shoes no more. But just go get some regular shoes. Don't show up at them people thing with no red bottoms on no more. It's not a good look. It just really ain't. Okay, so that was that, right? So that part, again, I ain't called the names. They know who they are. But I'm telling you, just don't do that. That just, right? So we're not supporting the property taxes. I'm just saying don't do that, because that's not a good thing. Please be cognizant of your audience. These candidates that are running, find a way to talk to everybody else, not just the same old people all the time. You may need to get out your comfort zone and go into spaces that you don't typically go into in order for you to really get your message out to the people. And again, I'm gonna end it, because I really was trying to only talk for 30 minutes today, because I have a couple of things I need to do. But what I'm saying is, if you're going to vote in the primaries, early voting is from August 3rd to August 16th. Miami-Dade, you got to pay attention to the schedule, because they have the time changes like both weeks. So you need to pay attention to the time. Broward County kept it simple, 7 a.m., 7 p.m., August 3rd to August 16th. That last day that you can vote for anybody is August the 18th. I believe the ballots, if you're voting by mail or you requested your vote by mail ballot, those are coming out or being mailed out on July the 9th. TPS holders, Canby Foss, reach out to some of these legal service organizations, Florida FLIC. They're doing some good work. They can help you find like some pro bono attorney. Don't get caught up going to the notarios, try to find a skilled attorney and go and speak to see what your options are. And listen to what your options are. You may not like them, but take strong consideration into what your options are in order for you to make whatever is the best decision for your family given the circumstance. Now, this too shall pass, right? This too shall pass. And some of you may have to leave, and that may be okay, because that doesn't mean that if you leave now that you can't ever come back, right? I do believe there's going to be a shift in the country. Hopefully it's for the better. So you may have to maybe step away for a couple of years and then come back. So do that, because that might be what's best for your family. But speak to someone who knows what it is that they're doing, so they can tell you give you a true idea and assessment of what your options are. All righty. So maybe I'll talk to a candidate next week. Maybe I won't. It just really depends on who calls me back. If not, I will have a longer conversation about all of the Supreme Court decisions, because they were long and they were a lot, and I didn't want to really start talking about them without having a fuller, better understanding of what it is that I would be explaining to the listening audience. So thank you very much, and you all have a good night. Okay, and go over to Numat Olive if you have time. Hey y'all, Sandra Sheffer, host of Racing the Races. Go ahead, please subscribe to our YouTube channel called Racing the Races. Subscribe to our TikTok page, Racing the Races, and like us on Facebook and Instagram, Racing the Races. Go ahead, support the page. I'm tired of getting crazy comments from these white dude trolls that's mad. Like, why y'all mad in the comments now? So come on, y'all, those who are fans of the show, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, comment on the video. Tell us what it is what else you would like to see, instead of me having to read all these trolling comments. But I see it as a compliment because I showed up in their feed and I really don't know who they are. And since they're not challenging the content is good. They want to make personal attacks, but that's okay. So I need y'all to go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube page, subscribe to TikTok. All of it is called Racing the Races, and go ahead and like us on Facebook and Instagram.